Talk about infected. Look at my face. I look like Joel at the end of this episode. I have a chronic condition where my eye gets really swollen. So if you're watching this, you're welcome. Welcome to a bite of.
Oh my God, the Pope is dead. Something else happens. We haven't said a spoiler warning yet, but you know, that happens.
My face looks like this. We're talking about The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 2. I'm Derek, and that's very pretty Noah.
My eye is not swollen.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Yes, Episode 2 of The Last of Us is giving very much like series premiere energy. There is spoilers. There is lots of tough things to talk about. I am trying to hold it together at this moment, so follow us, subscribe, do all those amazing, wonderful things that you normally do. Give a review, comment below. Did you love this episode? Did you hate it? What did you not like? What did you like? We need to have a therapy session. So
Sure
spoilers ahead.
Let us officially take a bite of The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 2, Through the Valley, written by Neil Druckman and directed by Mark Mylod. Jackson is walloped with a storm of bloater-sized proportions. The safe hold is broken by a horde of hibernating infected, and an emergency plan is initiated. In a kismet moment, Joel saves Abby, but Abby does not return the favor. So, general thoughts, sir?
I don't know. What do you think? What does anybody think at
Loved
this moment?
it. Couldn't wait for it.
No.
So excited for it to happen.
I think this was the thing that a lot of fans were dreading when they said this was going to be a TV show. We all said, hell yeah. Oh no. Because of this episode, because of this moment. So how were they going to change it? How were they going to do it? Because we talked about in our first review, our first discussion of the season so far, that they changed a lot of things. That didn't stop here. I think that they did some amazing things in this episode. And then there's some choices that I'm confused about. I'm not a big fan of handholdy stuff, so I thought it was surprising that they did some of that here. But we got some like big action set pieces that were bigger and grander than they were in the first season. They promised us more infected. I think we got enough. Like if we didn't have any infected for the next 2 episodes, I think they filled their quota at some point. But I think all in all, it was a great episode of television.
Yeah, there were a lot of moving parts to this episode. And what I thought was really cool about it was that there was, in my mind, there was just this loop of up and down the mountain, right? And I think that a lot of people were making that loop. I think a lot of infected were making that loop. And I think it just kind of kept all this action so, it felt so intense. Even though it was happening in 2 separate places. So the whole episode was just like a nail biter of an episode. I mean, literal hordes of infected here. And I think all of the technical pieces that came together to create this episode were executed really well.
Yeah, this is the episode, right, that I think is going to really set the groundwork to what the rest of the series is going to be about. And this is the catalyst. Again, it was the end of season 1, and this one just puts Ellie in this particular trajectory that will change the course of everybody's lives in this show. So one of the big changes, and I would say maybe 2/3 of this episode, there's the siege of Jackson, right? We hear throughout this episode that there's, infected that are insulating themselves. They're smarter. We knew that those roots had some of those cordyceps tendrils coming through there. How was all that going to play out? Well, a giant big action set piece that gave me like feelings of Game of Thrones, which I was not mad about. What did you make of this, like, I guess, grand, almost war battle scene that we didn't see in the first season at all?
Well, like I said, I think that the action we as viewers kind of needed something like this. And I think it was really well done. One of the things that I think came of this that I really enjoyed was seeing Tommy and Maria as leaders in Jackson Hole. I think they really held their own here. They managed to work together without actually being together, still having each other's backs. I think it showed them not only as leaders, but also as a couple, as a relationship of 2 people who love each other, who have literally been through the end of the world and could see it all end in this moment. So as far as their character development, because with Tommy last season, he really wasn't around that much. So to see him take more of a center stage role in this scene, I really appreciated.
Yeah, and you get to see how, it's one thing to see these people 20, 30 years after the apocalypse happened, and they're already prepared. But how are they actually enacting those things that they prepared? It was really cool to see. In the game, we hear about Jackson getting threats and things that happen, but you never see it. Because in the game at this point, because we know what happens, they're gone. They leave Jackson. So like Jackson's kind of like in the review at this point. So seeing like even just the barrels of gas that get dropped down, how the fence was fortified, how they're going to stand in the streets on Main Street with the flamethrowers, the dogs being on the roofs, going up high ground, people down below. It was really smart. I liked seeing all of those things where it's like, oh, okay, that could possibly work.
And I think it was very scary because there's only so much you can do to protect yourself. They did have this really great plan in place, but watching things fall apart, right? Even like you said, the barrels going down and starting the fires, it only stopped so many of them.
Once a bloater came into town.
Absolutely. And seeing these big, giant wooden walls crumble at the hands of that bloater, it just showed how even though they feel not that necessarily advanced, but they feel modern as far as the city is concerned in these conditions, there's only so much in their control. And, I think that speaks to life itself and how you can prepare, but you can't prepare for everything.
Well, and what this episode really does too is it shows that it's not just our main characters that are in trouble, that other people are in trouble as well. So I think from a world perspective and understanding the costs and stakes of this world, we needed something like this, because seeing those women, children, elderly, the civilians just down below cowering and hearing the door being shook, that's scary. You don't want these kids getting hurt. And it's like, stop having kids. Like there's too many babies. There was one scene where I was like, okay, that's like 10 kids. Like
that's like The Quiet Place, the big thing of The Quiet Place is like, why'd they have a baby?
Granted, it's like 30 years, but still like, oh my God.
Yeah. And I think, in watching this, you can't help but put yourself in that place, in that situation. And I'm going, oh, I'd be useless. I'd be so useless in this entire situation. But, I think hopefully adrenaline takes over at some point and you have no choice but to fight. And that's what I love so much about Tommy here. He starts off kind of at the top of the gates, leading everyone. When that fails, when they break through, he ends up in the street, and he's kind of a line of these flamethrower soldiers, and they run away.
Well, okay, I'm just going to, so like, while I did say it was cool to see their plans in action, some of them I was like, maybe they didn't think there would be this many, but when you saw that there was like thousands coming towards you, I don't think 4 people with flamethrowers was going to do much. Maybe, hopefully, like fish in a barrel, kind of shooting fish in a barrel would have helped, and it did, but like, they got overran so quickly, which I think just even shows that even though they've advanced in some way and they have all of these precautions in place, it doesn't matter. Once you get overwhelmed like that, the numbers are just too great. And especially throwing a bloater in there. I like seeing a bloater in the more daylight, I guess. Before we saw him in the very like narrow street, it was dark. There was only fire really illuminating it. But seeing this and having Tommy go 1-to-1 with the bloater was terrifying. There was a lot of instances in this episode where it was like a ticking clock almost. The storm was approaching. And so they had all of these things going on with a blizzard. I mean, we get it. It sucks.
Yeah. What did you think of the final moments of Tommy and the bloater? How did that feel for you?
I think I knew he wasn't going to die, even just not knowing from the game or whatever, because we've seen scenes in the trailers. I thought it was still effective because, like, whoa, I mean, you see the gauge on the gas tank go down as he's shooting it, and it's like still walking. It's still walking towards him. I liked it. I think it was a very like intense scene, and Tommy tried. He tried and he won in the end, but yeah.
I'm so grateful that he did win in the end. I mean, it only took a flamethrower and probably 500 bullets to finally stop it. But that thing was hungry for Tommy.
Well, I like that he saw it look at Maria and he said, no, He's like, if anything, I'm going to make sure that she doesn't have to deal with this. But speaking of Maria up there, which, I mean, fantastic, very MVP moment, on your left moment, letting the dogs out, and then the dogs essentially making them win because dogs are amazing. We still don't deserve dogs. But I liked that. I think it was at the top in this moment where it shows somebody getting bit and he hands the gun to somebody else. Like he knew, he's like, I'm bit.
Yes.
Like, take care of me.
Devastating.
That was an insane detail that I don't think I needed, but it's just a layer of like, these people understand.
Well, yes. And it's very much for the greater good, right? Of going, I'm not going to risk everyone else. Just do it because we know what's going to happen here.
What did you make of the infected kind of? Because we see Abby. Abby essentially is the one that makes this horde bigger because she steps into the nest and awakens all of them. What did you think of that whole sequence with that clicker just slowly like...
Yeah, Abby's the MVP of this episode as far as most
Body
valuable problem maker. Because she really just starts some shit here. And so we, like you said, we get that seed is planted at the beginning of the episode talking about the infected using the other infected as a way to stay warm and survive. And so when she lands down there, you just know it's bad. And I wasn't sure how many were going to come out, but damn, like that mountain was basically infected.
Well, so she awakened like one pod of them, I guess. And then as Joel, Dina, and Abby are going to where Dina's group is, there's another group coming.
Abby's group.
No.
Oh.
There was two groups of infected that met up, and one started going towards Jackson, and the group that was following them turned to go with them.
Right.
So that's why there was no infected really following them towards the end. They all went towards Jackson, but there's two groups of, they're just, would they just piling up? They're like, oh, here comes winter. Let's all like huddle in.
They're like little bears.
It's so crazy.
They just go hibernate if they eat too much. But, you know, we again see in this instance how the infected are evolving, right? And so much of this episode is about how the slim chance of something happening could alter the story. And so when we first see this, it's like, of course, she falls and she unleashes them. But then at that same time, someone in Jackson happens to open that pipe and hit those other tendrils, which lets them all know that communication goes through that they should go there instead.
There's a lot of instances in this episode where, like, in particular, like, because, you know, we know Joel dies in this episode, right? If anything would have changed, there were so many instances where, like, Joel didn't have to die, but every single thing that happened kept leading to that. The fact that Abby, they talked in the beginning and they're like, what's our plan? Even if we did get into the city, how are we going to know where Joel is? Of course, Joel just happens to be the only patrol that goes into her sights. Get out of here.
And, you know, they were really playing with us in this episode because we're in the dark, like Ellie at the beginning of this, who's looking for Joel in a sense, and he's already gone. So we just know that he's gone and we don't know when he's going to pop up. And of course, he pops up to save Abby.
I really think that, because now we're kind of, I was trying to put off the Joel conversation, which we're still putting it off at some point. I'm putting it off as long as possible. There's a lot of instances where it's like they purposely kept Ellie and Joel away from each other. Like constantly throughout this. I mean, it's 2 episodes, right? But it was the last time we saw them, they were fighting. It does seem like when we pick up with not Abby, with Ellie today, that she's like, I want to go on and patrol Joel. I think that we're missing a scene and we'll see it later. Because when she came back from the dance from the New Year's thing, it didn't really show the end of that, but it seems like whatever happened that night, maybe they had a conversation or something. And they made up in some, or had an understanding. I don't know if made up, but the fact that she said, I want to go on patrol with Joel. There's some development, some growth had happened that we didn't see. And I don't like that.
Why don't you like that?
Because it's going to be sad.
Oh, yeah.
Because he died. And then we're going to see them come to some type of understanding. And it's going to be like, cool.
Well, at least, though, I remember you had said when we had watched the first episode that I hope those aren't her last words to him when she yells at him at the dance. So if there is that scene there, at least we know that something was mended between them. Yeah. But you know, before we get to Abby, I do want to talk about the scene with Seth that we see where he apologizes for what he did at the dance. And I don't know necessarily what Maria was trying to achieve in that, other than just trying to keep the peace. But when something like that is said, that's not easily forgivable.
Well, I love what Ellie said, and it's 100% true. And don't let anybody ever tell you otherwise. Is she said, "Oh, because people haven't said things other than when they're drunk, or thought things prior to when they've had a few drinks." Like, yeah, you have thought that, it just came out. So whatever. I mean, the good thing is that he did listen to Maria. He did apologize to Ellie, so there is some understanding there, and I think that's like the basis of like at least try.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Learn from this.
Right.
And, also with Ellie's journey here, we learn more about Eugene as well, who had a 7-Eleven grow house for weed.
This is one of the changes that they made in this. You hate librarians? You took out the library?
That's right. I got excited.
Fine. Whatever. It's okay.
Books. Wow.
Yeah, I'll go more into like the changes and stuff after we talk about the Abby stuff. But I did like that we keep getting these instances of Eugene, right? They're hammering it in, like, don't forget about Eugene. Like, there's an episode coming up, which is like, we get it. But I like that Ellie is now finding out a little bit more about Eugene, even though she's obviously known him. She knew what Joel had to do. So her learning a little bit more. But I mean, in a 7-Eleven, all that weed, fantastic.
I mean, that's a party.
Yeah.
What is the end of the world? What else are you going to do?
Also, Jesse, chill out. He's like, you can't take all that. Like, chill out.
Well, Eugene isn't around anymore.
Right.
He's not going to know his stock is gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Let's go up the mountain.
Yeah. Jesse really foreshadowed this episode because she said, oh, do you think that storm's coming here? And he's like, no, it's going to stay up in the mountains. Guess who died in the mountains?
Yeah, there's a hell of a storm in the mountains.
So one noticeable change from the game to the show was that the groups, right? When Joel does die, when he goes to the cabin with Abby's group, it's Tommy that's with him. Dina and Ellie are together. Jesse's like down in Jackson. I can sort of understand the changes in the group that they did. It did make me more nervous that Dina was with Joel in this moment, because then it kind of opened it up to uncertainty of like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen here, because I thought I knew, but y'all are changing things on me, and this is too emotional for you to change it on me. Seeing Abby crawl under the fence, loved that scene. I thought it was just structurally amazing. And then as soon as that hand comes out with that watch, I was like, oh no, here we go.
Yeah.
This is it.
They made sure you saw that watch. Just taking a step back when Abby's crawling under that fence and that one infected is pushing so hard to grab her that the chain link goes through his hand. That was gnarly.
Yeah.
That was gnarly.
Yeah.
What are they saying about hands in this episode?
I don't know. They're expendable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, seeing Joel, it's just, and they keep his face off screen, but we know that it's him. And just from that moment on, it's pure devastation.
Yeah. I think the last thing that Joel sees, aside from Ellie, when she does end up making it into the room, is Jackson on fire, and he doesn't know if his brother is alive. Which is so, they didn't show a lot of Joel getting killed, which is fine. I think I don't need to see it. I saw it in the game enough, but just those extra layers of, he looked over when he knew something was up, when he knew Abby was like upset at him about something and it was going to get serious. He looked over at Jackson and it's on fire. And I'm like, this sucks. This sucks. Like, this dude tried. He tried. He made a bad decision. I'm not excusing it. Made a bad decision, and it's like, damn, okay.
And I think that's what's so upsetting for Joel, is that Joel tries so hard to take care of those that are around him. And in that moment, he's looking behind him, seeing his home for the last 5 years burning, not knowing what's going on with his brother. And in this moment, knowing, I don't know where Ellie is, and I think these are my last moments, and I have no control over it, and I can't help her anymore.
Yeah, I mean, at least it's just him that's there, maybe. But yeah, he doesn't know where she is, what's happening there, why it's on fire. How did you feel about Abby's motivations here? Like, when with her group, because her group very much seems like, I'm kind of on board with this, but like, it's a step too far in some instances.
I think that Abby maybe doesn't even realize how much rage she had built up in her, and kind of made these I don't want to say well-intentioned plans, but these plans of, well, we're just going to kill Joel and we're not going to hurt anyone else and everyone's on board. And it almost seemed like, Mel and one or the other people in the group are kind of purely there for medical needs and are just there to sedate anyone who's around, not kill anyone. And when they're watching her cross the line, I think for them, it feels like blurring the line of right and wrong, blurring the line of this revenge that she has to get because she's taking it too far.
She did something where, she had told Mel to sedate Dina, like put her to sleep, which I think was good for Dina's sake. But Dina did hear everything. She knows her name. She knows where they're from. She knows a lot of information before they put her out. So that's a good thing for Ellie and for the revenge sake on that side. But to see, I'm curious on what they thought was going to happen, because there was moments where she kind of insinuates that like she could kill Dina, and she was like serious about it. And like her group was kind of like, wait, you only said Joel. So I think there's that scariness of like, oh, wait, we're not totally sure how far Abby's going to go with this. I mean, she was like gearing up to do this for 5 years. She was just festering in that hatred. We saw at the beginning of this episode, I would say like a PTSD nightmare almost, where her now self is in past self going to see her father dead on the floor in the hospital. And she's seeing that. So it's like, that's the mind space she's been in this entire time. So she's had a lot of anger building up in her.
Absolutely. And I think that once that can is opened, there's no way to stop it from completely spilling over. It just so happens that she sort of has these 4, consciousness of people going there to pull her back, right? Whereas if she was by herself, it might not have been that. It might have been even worse.
Yeah, maybe, because she was like, oh, I'm going to use the shotgun to bust your kneecap out. Oh, there's some golf clubs. Let me use these. Yeah. Okay.
That was a pristine looking set of golf clubs, let me tell you.
Well, they didn't need it in the apocalypse.
Of anything to survive that lodge, it was those golf clubs. Yeah. And it's tough. I mean, to see Joel be tortured. It's funny. I just watched a bloater get torched. I watched dogs rip out the infected throats. I'm like, yeah, get them. But when it's Joel, it's visceral. It's almost more quiet. It's more intimate, and therefore it's more terror. It's just that much more scary.
Yeah. There was moments where I think the interesting thing with this situation or this scene and how they played it, one, they did it in like the daytime, which is a stark difference from the game. And I'm curious on what that decision was, maybe just to like bring this horror to light. I'm trying to like form words of like, I thought this was deeply unsettling and deeply sad. Even though I knew it was going to happen, even though I've experienced it before, and the same beats did happen, just a little, maybe slightly different. There's just some things about, I think, this scene where Abby is fully telling her motivations. And I think that's very odd. And to me, almost takes away from, I guess, the horror of it, the what is happening, the violence of it, because nobody here should know. Like, Joel doesn't know. In the game, Joel dies not knowing why this person killed him. And I think that is so deeply sad and unsettling that to take that away is almost like, okay, like, I guess that's a comfort, right? But us as audiences know. And the entire length of the game, you don't find that out until way later. You don't know her motivation. So I think the hand-holdiness of that is odd. And I don't think I like it, because now we're almost in the seat of like, I'm supposed to sympathize with her. But because I know her motivations now, it's not impactful. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I do think it's interesting, though, because as someone who played the game, I think you do have that other perspective to compare it to. And so if something was done and you really liked it, and not seeing that play out the way that you liked it, I think that can be disappointing. So I definitely understand that. Now, me as someone who didn't play the game, to me, it just felt more like a villain monologuing. Right. It's like that weird,
cheap.
I agree. It's like that weird thing that villains always do. I think you see it more in cartoons than you do in live action. So
You see it in superhero stuff all the time.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But this is not superhero, right? This is not that type of show. So to see that monologuing, I think, was definitely a surprise. Although I did like that it gave Joel one last time to kind of be Joel and say, just get it over with already. Like, shut the hell up, kid.
He said, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Get it over with already.
Kill me. This is taking too long.
Yeah. I get it. One of the changes I think that they did really well was swapping Dina for Tommy. Tommy, we know why he wasn't there. He had to go defend Jackson, which I think was a cool thing to do. I don't know if like having these two things in the same episode was necessarily the best decision, because even though I felt like it was all like ramped up and it was all high and we got this really huge emotional ending, it just kind of felt almost like I would like to sit with this and then also have this. But it just felt too lopsided to me almost. I think it worked overall. I just think I was more like, I don't know, like I know what's coming. So like I couldn't really sit with the Jackson stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand. But in the apocalypse, baby, there's no controlling it.
Oh, of course
it's
not.
It's mayhem at all times.
But the people wrote this.
and I think that there's, something there of showing violence can take many forms. And it can be something as scary as a horde of infected breaking through a wall, or it can be something as quiet as someone torturing someone to death.
Quiet?
Think of that. There were how many people in that room, and only one of them was making a noise?
Ellie heard them from downstairs and she came up. Yeah, no, I get what you mean. Yeah, I think there was one thing that I did like, because they changed the groups, is in the game, it made no sense on why Joel and Tommy were saying each other's names. And that's how Abby knew that was Joel. And so in this instance, when Joel takes Abby into that warehouse or wherever they were, Dina's calling for Joel because she didn't know where he was. And then it made sense. So I was like, okay, I like that change. Like then Abby was like, oh shit. So that was a good change. I don't know. I just think that like us like fully laying out all her motivation in the second episode is odd. I think it's odd for that character. That's just me. That was like my biggest gripe with it. It was like, oh, okay. Like we're not going to get that emotional journey of like, I don't like just nobody knowing why. Like we all know now. So like, okay, go get her, Ellie.
And thank God for that.
Yeah.
But going finally when Ellie does get there, and she gets pinned down, and Joel and her are just looking at each other. Woof.
Yeah, it's really sad. I mean, to have her crying for Joel, telling him to get up, and then that moment when he actually does try to get up, like she sees that there's still some life in him, and he tries, and her face changes, and she's like, "Oh, he's still alive." And then Abby finishes the job, but the final moment of her crawling to Joel and then laying on top of him, and then also hearing Ashley Johnson, who voiced Ellie, sing Through the Valley over this. Why? Like, what? It was already sad. I didn't need that. But it's fine.
Yeah, it was traumatizing.
Yeah,
I think. I mean, I was kind of in shock. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't really sleep well last night just because it was so violent and so terrible. And it's rare that your main character is killed in the second episode of the second season.
It's very much a, Game of Thrones, right? In the first season of Game of Thrones and the season finale, Ned Stark dies. Yeah. And you as a viewer or even a reader of this book is like, oh, this is going to be a character that is throughout this whole thing. But in reality, this is the character that ignites everything and sets everything in motion. So unfortunately, that's this character for Joel. He sets everything in motion for this. It's very much like, Joel created this thing for Abby. Abby created the same exact thing for Ellie. So it's just repeating itself. Joel took away her father. Abby took away her father. I mean, where are we going to stop?
Yeah, this cycle of revenge just keeps going. And I think that the questions that we're dealing with here are, do two wrongs make a right?
No.
Two wrongs just make more wrongs and more anger. And here we are again in the same situation, but now we're just seeing it through Ellie's eyes.
Yeah, I do like that Dina was there to experience it, though, because they're not really an item in the show at the moment. In the game, they're the ones that go to the library. They get naked. They have a great time together and they become an item. So for Dina to go with Ellie to find Abby makes sense because it's like they're a couple. In this, now she's like, what's the right word? Like, she experienced it. Like it happened to her too. So she's going to have that motivation to be like, yeah, Ellie, let's go. Like, I also want to, avenge him or whatever.
She has stakes
Yeah.
in this now as well. And then, of course, just as the song is playing and they're on the horses.
I don't want to talk about it.
And Ellie looks back.
Nope. It's fine. She still had the blood of Joel on her face. It's fine.
Breaking.
Yeah, her ribs are broken. It's fine.
And this next episode, I'm actually looking forward to because I want to see the emotional stakes. I want to see how everyone is affected by this death.
Yeah, we see that scene of Ellie waking up screaming, which I would too. Also fuck Abby for being like, you know what? You are really handsome. We know it's Pedro Pascal. Of course he's handsome. Shut up.
And then she took that away from him.
Yeah, she made him not pretty. Thanks. I don't know. This episode fucking sucked, man. Like emotionally, like it's, of course it was coming. I think we theorized a little bit in the first episode, like when was it going to happen? When would we think would be the right moment? I think I had thrown around a little bit like, oh, maybe they were going to keep him a little bit. I'm glad they did it now. I would have been okay with them doing it in the first episode. Not like okay with it, but like understanding that they did it in the beginning because there's just so much more we have to get to. And we can't do that, unfortunately, until Joel's out of the picture. So to take that, and also there's like expectations between fans. Like that's all I would be thinking about. Like if we were in like episode 6 and it hadn't happened yet, I'd be like, okay, like, you're kind of pissing me off now. Like, I know what's going to happen. Why hasn't it happened? So I think it was smart for them to do it as soon as they could. But it happened. Yeah. And we have to move on from here. But I think we're still going to see him. We're going to get flashbacks. Maybe they had a conversation that we'll see and it's just going to break our heart all over again. But yeah, where do we go from here? Game spoiler. More spoilers in case you don't want to know something that's going to potentially happen in the show. The people in that group do come back in some form or fashion. Like Ellie is going to go after them. There's a noticeable omission, and I'm not sure if it's going to happen like when we find out about it. But Mel is pregnant during this, so I thought it was an interesting thing to like not talk about because the baby and everything, like her pregnancy, plays a part in it. So I'm curious if we'll find out later or if they just didn't want to like throw another thing. By the way, I'm pregnant.
There are definitely pieces that have been laid out for us, right? Like you said, Dina is a part of this now. She saw the patch, the WLF patch, which I'm just calling Wolf. I don't know if that's correct.
Washington Liberation Front.
There you go. So, that puzzle piece is set out for us for them to explore. I do think it's, something to think about of a lot of times when we're in an apocalyptic world, the main point of the story is to stop the apocalypse or to cure the disease. But I feel like that is such a thing that doesn't exist in this world. And now what we're really looking for is just revenge.
Yeah, because Joel killed them.
Wow, so Noah really is on the side of the Fireflies. Good to know.
No, I'm saying there is no cure being made because Joel killed them. He killed the entire hospital of them. Ooh. Yeah. Okay. This was fun. It's fine.
Yeah, we're gonna go cry some more.
I'm sorry. Like, I feel like this episode was kind of somber, and it was again like trying to not give away the ending right up top when we were talking about it. But like, I think we're all just collectively kind of sad. And especially with stories this effective, it's hard to be like, woo.
Plus, it's the world's baby, Pedro Pascal.
When he was casted, I was like, I'm going to have to see him die again.
He's the zaddy of all zaddies.
But Game of Thrones squished his head.
Yeah, a lot of head stuff with this poor guy.
His beautiful head.
I'm worried about Mr. Fantastic.
No, it will stretch.
That's true.
Nobody can swish his head. Nobody can stab his head.
Only he can squish his head.
Yeah.
How about that?
Very excited for that. Oh, okay. Let us know what you thought of this episode. Are you looking forward to more?
What are you doing to take care of yourself after watching this episode?
I think I had said something online of like, To all the non-gamers, welcome to the grief circle. We're happy to have you.
Yes, let us all hold hands and cry.
I will say I'm kind of proud of like the gamers of not spoiling it. There's of course people that just openly talked about it, but I think collectively we all just really wanted these new fans to experience it however they were going to do it.
Thanks.
But like, I don't know. I think it's kind of nice because there were so many people that I was seeing online like, oh my God, like this is what you guys experience. It's like, yes, for over 5 years now. Yes. We had to live with this. But good job, guys. So we can all grieve together now and move on. And so whatever form that takes.
Move on.
Yeah. I'm excited to see where Ellie goes from here. But yeah, I guess till next time.
More rage.
Yay.
Goodbye.
Bye.